Hello. Hey, everybody. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I was just talking to Jill Shalvis, just having a laugh with Jill. we got a little carried away. So I'm sorry we're a few seconds late here. Welcome. Welcome to, day drinking, night drinking with authors. Tonight's really spectacular. I have legend and all around fabulous person, Jill Shalvis, joining us tonight to talk about her book, The Forever Girl. If you're like, Molly, you're not in your shabby, sad little office. You're right. I'm in this beautiful, I rented an Airbnb for a week, literally 2 blocks away from my house, just so I could get some work done and my kids could not find me. That said, my daughter is coming for a sleepover, so I'm a total pushover. But I want to remind you, I'm going to bring Jill on in just a second. I want to remind you, please ask questions. You can ask questions in the comment field, and I see them along the side. And this is going to be a lot of fun. If there's something you've always wanted to ask Jill about her writing process, about her ideas, about books that she's written in the past, if you want that inside scoop, now's the moment. But I'm going to read you the back cover copy because my mother always likes it when I do that, of The Forever Girl, which is Jill's latest. New York Times bestselling author Jill Shalvis does it once again with a heartfelt story of family, forgiveness, and secrets that have the power to change the course of more than one life. When Maisie returns to Wildstone for the wedding of her estranged BFF and the sister of her heart, it's also a reunion of once ragtag team of teenagers who had only each other until a tragedy tore them apart and scattered them wide. Now, as adults together again in a lake house, there are secrets and resentments mixed up in all the amazing childhood memories. Unexpectedly, they instantly fall back into their roles. Maisie, their reckless leader, Kat, their den mother, Heather, the beloved baby sister, and Walker, a man of mystery. Life has changed all 4 of them in immeasurable ways. Maisie and Kat must decide if they can rebuild their friendship, and Maisie discovers her long-held attraction to Walker hasn't faded with the years, but has only grown stronger. Oh my gosh, if that doesn't make you want to read it. So here is Jill Shalvis.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Jill.
Hello.
So much for joining us from your snowy place to my snowy place to everybody's snowy place.
Seriously, a lot of snow happening. Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about this book because and actually, so it's part of the I have 20 questions. It's part of this Wildstone series. It's like if you guys go to buy it, it's going to say book 6 of Wildstone series.
But it's not really. It's not a series. I should say that. This is The Forever Girl that we're talking about tonight. Yes. It takes place in Wildstone, and there's 6 or 7. Actually, there's 8 books. 2 haven't come out yet that take place in the same region, but are not connected in any way to any other characters. So you can start with this book, and I swear, I promise, readers never believe me. I pinky swear everything that you can start here and you won't miss anything.
I can vouch for that. I can vouch for that because I was like, oh gosh, I haven't read a couple of these. Do I need to go back? But so you are writing it's like a genre little thing.
Yes, it is. It's a standalone.
Women's fiction novels, we'll talk about that too. It really does sort of blend that line with
a hybrid. It's a complete hybrid. I mean, they label it as women's fiction. They shelve it in fiction because there is some elements of just straight fiction in it, but I promise the romance readers there's still always a romance in it in every one of these books.
Yeah, you have not given that up. Walker, no. The fun tension between Walker and Maisie is fun tension.
Yes, I think Walker's one of my favorites. He was not going to be like a main character. It was really going to be about Maze and Kat, and then he just walked down the page and I was like, oh, he's taken over. He took over this whole book. I just loved him. So I had to give him a romance.
So does that still happens for you? I mean, you're 50
a million books in. Yeah, a million. It's 100.
A million books in. Fair. And that still happens for you. Your characters, you're like, hey, your characters take over.
I've learned the hard way because I'll say I love this job, but as you know, it's a very hard job to do. It's difficult to tell these stories and make them all different and tell new characters and not have readers feel like they've heard the same story 25 times. That's really hard. So the only way I get around getting halfway through and thinking I have to throw this crap right out the window is I have to plot it out ahead of time. I have to plot it out in deep detail. So I am so deeply offended when I get halfway through and my character says, nope, don't want to do that. We want to do this. And I have learned though to go with it, to go with the flow, because if it's flowing, then it's right. If I've written myself into a corner, that's when I know I've done something wrong in the outline. I have to go back and fix it.
I want every writer who happens to be watching right now to write down, if it's flowing, then it's right, and put it on a Post-it note on your computer, because it is an easy thing to second guess, right? To try to bring those things in to go a different way.
And I lose my way at least once every single book, usually around chapter 19. And, I don't know why. It just, I think I get so far and I start to doubt myself, and I let the doubt sink in and the imposter syndrome sink in.
People are boring. They're doing boring things.
Right. They didn't know what they were doing. They gave me this contract. It was a pity contract. All those things that you let mess with your head, and that messes with your writing. So I try to circumvent that by coming up with a really deep outline. So I have the roadmap. If I follow it, great. If I end up curving off of it, I've learned to accept that as well. But as long as I have the map, I'm never completely lost. And now that's not to say it's right for everybody to do that. Some people love to write just as it comes to them, right off the seat of their pants. I admire that. I used to be able to do that.
Well, that was one of the things that I was going to ask, is that it's been, when was your first book published?
The Ice Age. I think, yeah, right around the Ice Age, 1998.
Was it Harlequin Temptation?
No, I started with the first Love Swept before I started way back at Love Swept. Then I killed that line. Then I went to Silhouette, Intimate Moments, and Temptation and Blaze, and I had a great time. We're talking about category romance for those who don't know. The Harlequin Silhouette category romance: boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl, and that was my bread and butter for a long, long time. I loved it, but then I yearned for a bigger story, more story, more people. And so I branched out into what they call single title. And so that's where I stayed.
So I do have 20,000 questions, but we're going to do a little tangent real quick. Do you remember when you got the call?
Yes.
Oh, good. Tell us.
You never forget that story, I don't think. My youngest daughter was an infant, like a brand new baby. And my oldest daughter, I had 3 kids under the age of 5, which, by the way, I never recommend to anybody.
Bad idea.
Yeah, deep, dark years of hell. Anyways, I got the call from someone said, hello, I'm an editor from, and then as she's telling me her name from down the hall, I hear my daughter yell, wipe me. My oldest daughter had gone to the bathroom and she wasn't allowed to do the paperwork by herself yet. So I didn't hear anything the editor said to me until after, because she goes, I want to buy your book. I'm like, great. And then somehow I accidentally hung up on her and I didn't know her name. I didn't know the publishing house. I didn't know anything. So I'm finishing up with my daughter. Thank God she called me back. Yeah, that's how my first sale went. Can you believe? And that she still gave me a contract.
Yeah, well, she called you back. I mean,
she called me back. Yeah,
that's spectacular. My sales story was not entirely. It was not too different from that, in that it was
someone yelling "wipe me" from down the hall too.
No, that is special. That is special. Did the editor hear? Give you over time?
Oh yes. And that's why she called me back, and she sympathized because she was a young mom. It was all great. It was great, but it was very embarrassing, and it's an embarrassing story to tell still.
As your full-grown adult daughter.
Yes, 24 years later. Yeah, I'll never forget.
I was a substitute teacher when I got the phone call, and I was living in California, and the office was in Toronto, and so they called really early, and I thought it was the call that you get in the morning saying, can you come in to teach whatever?
Right.
And I was like, no, I've got a job this morning. I'm sorry, I've got a job. Because it was like 6 a.m.
Oh my God.
And they're like, no. We want to talk to you about your book. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I have a job. And they're like, Molly, wait.
Get some caffeine. I'll wait.
So
good times.
In your, how is your process? I mean, I know we are going to talk about the book, guys. I'm sorry, but we've really gotten into this writer talk.
Here's no problem. I'll just tell everybody. ADHD and I'm unmedicated, and I feel like you might have a tad of that as well.
When how has your process changed? Because I mean, it is you're someone who has weathered many market
Ups and
changes.
downs.
Yeah, you've been around writing consistently all this time. How has your process changed, or has it? Is it still the same? I
It
wake up
has
at
changed.
9.
I used to, wake up and get the kids to school and then sit down and write. And I would write without an outline. And it was just great. And that was when I was young and had a memory. And now I don't seem to remember. And now that also I'm writing a much more complicated book than I did, which isn't to say it's any better or not, because I still love those categories. But these books are bigger and like twice as big, and there's a cast sometimes 1,000. So I actually write everything down. I plot it out in great detail. We've talked about that before, where I like do the threads and then I shuffle it all into the outline. So I have it all outlined perfectly. So in the morning I get up, I have my iced tea and a bowl of cereal, and then there's chaos around me. It went from having little kids to being silent for a long time because they went to school. And now during the pandemic, everyone's come back. So we're all living together as adults. So my house is back to the same chaos that it was all those years ago when I had little kids. So, I mean, I have 10 people in this house. So,
and as someone has mentioned here in the comments, you have a brand new grandbaby.
Yes. So my youngest daughter has a 15-month-old and an infant, a brand, like she had her baby last week. And they're all here.
Listen to you about that advice.
Nobody listens to me. I said, I have 3 kids under the age of 5. Don't do that. I'm telling you, don't. Nobody listens.
Baby fever.
Anyways, it's awesome.
So now there's chaos around you. You're having your bowl of cereal. You're thinking about your work. Like, are you able to work for 6 hours a day, or are you?
Well, not in a row, because I can't go that long without getting interrupted. So finally, I'm in my bedroom right now, and I had to steal the internet. So no one's allowed to be on the internet while I'm up here, because on top of all that, a lot of people stream, right? But we're also in the mountains. So I have my cord plugged into the computer. I've stolen all the internet. We hopefully can't get kicked out. I have my door shut. That doesn't mean anything necessarily. So we could be interrupted at any moment.
So you also write, like, one of the things that I loved about that description of Forever Girls, like Jill Shalvis has done it again. You are so, my experience reading a Jill Shalvis book, and everybody listening, chime in. My experience is that you provide the consistent hit of romance and women's fiction that I want. And I like how
it's what I want to read. And I think you asked about what's the longevity, like how do you stay doing this? For me, I'm writing what I want to read, and I actually think it's mac and cheese. It's comfort food. And I must not be the only one. Thank God there are readers. I love them, each and every one of them. I want to give them hugs and kisses for liking what I write, because hopefully it's comfort food for them, and we need that more than ever now.
So, and as you've sort of weathered shifts in the market, you've written some hotter stuff, you've written some sweeter stuff. What would you say is like your core story or the promise of the Jill Shalvis experience when a reader picks up their book, no matter what it is, whether it's one of the steamier ones or
it doesn't matter. So the Wildstone series, I would say, still has some rated R moments in them, but less so than like my Heartbreaker Bay series or my Lucky Harbor series. I think the core that stays the same is the tone, and the tone is funny and warm and family, or a sense of community, whether it's the family you make or the family that you're born with, and a little bit of sexiness, and sometimes a little mystery, and sometimes an adventure. But the core, the heart, is always the same, because it's all about the characters for me, and it's all about finding love, whether that's with someone else or with yourself or with your family, whatever that is. So I think that's the one consistent thing that I keep no matter what.
One of the things that I love about your book so much is, like, I feel like you've got such an ear for banter. Like, your characters are funny and witty, and they say quippy things. And even if you have a character that we aren't supposed to maybe like right off the bat, they're so like funny that we like them. Does it come out of your head that way? I'm
very sarcastic and snarky, and People will say to me, like, how can you find this situation funny? I mean, you can find the funny in anything. I think it's not so hard to find the funny in anything. But what my trick to dialogue is when I'm writing it, the trick for readers is as soon as I'm done, I read it out loud. And if I don't crack myself up, then it didn't work,
Oh,
you
wow.
know, because dialogue is difficult and it's easy to write stilted dialogue unless you say it out loud and you think, oh, no one's going to say it like that. They're going to say it like this.
One of the things that I really love about The Forever Girl. So for those of you who haven't read it, I totally encourage you to read it. You don't need to read the other books in the series, but why not? You know, you're going to love them. But so it deals with a group of some foster kids, some kids who are natural children of the parents who had this terrible tragedy that happened, and they got split up, and now they're coming back together for this wedding, for the wedding of one of the siblings, and you have mixed into this some serious like heartbreak. There's some questions about whether this girl should be marrying this guy. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Or is he just a guy? It's like, I kept going from like, oh, what a jerk, to like, well, I mean, not a jerk. You know, like it was. And then you also have this this secret, or not really a secret, but this
It's kind of a secret. Yeah.
Um,
This whole book started when I was flipping through Tumblr because I love pictures. I love taking pictures. And I love to look at other people's pictures. And on Tumblr, I saw there was a picture of a gravestone and then 5 beach chairs in a semicircle around this gravestone. And everyone there was 5, 20s to 30s sitting, and they were all toasting to this gravestone. And on their faces were a mix of affection and grief. Like you got the feeling just by looking at this picture, it had been 20 years since whoever this person had died, maybe 10, 15, whatever, and that they were so tight that this was something they did every year, either at his birthday or the anniversary of the death or whatever. So that started this story for me, and that's where the prologue starts. Is these people who have I think the part of what I loved about this book so much was when you have a relationship with someone that you start in childhood, you get to know people in a different way as a kid than you do as an adult.
Yeah.
And those early bonds, like you never get to know someone like that ever again. When you think about it, think back to your middle school years or your elementary grade years, like your friends were it for you.
Yeah.
Tight bond in a way that you don't get as adults. So that's what I wanted to start with this group of people who had that bond, but then the bond blew up and they got scattered far and wide. And then the book takes place many years later. They've come back together. They're all in their late 20s, early 30s, and they come together for a wedding. And in that time, there's been secrets and relationships and things ongoing that no one knows about.
And I think you really hit a nail on the head. My mom in times of COVID has gotten back in touch with all of her friends from high school. And I'm still pretty tight with some friends of mine from high school, but she was saying like, you think that you've outgrown them, like, you're an adult, but you realize how much that chemistry is still there, and how much who you are is because of who they were. Like we grow up in response to the people, and your characters, you feel that, like Maisie in particular, Heather a little bit too, like there's a bit of like their trajectory ended when they split up, and they've just been kind of coasting or stalling in this.
Yeah, they need each other. They didn't realize they needed each other. And so they come back together, and I think some of them think, hey, this is going to be great. And some of them are thinking like Maze, oh shit, I have this huge secret that's now going to come out that I've managed to keep all this time, and now I'm not going to be able to keep it. And Heather too. So, I mean, I love that. I loved blowing them all up again and making them work their way back to each other.
Another thing that I really loved while reading this book, and I'm a romance reader and I'm a women's fiction reader, and I like both of them for different reasons. But when I started to realize, like, you set up this book and I'm like, oh, Heather's going to be the next book. Heather gets to be the next book. And then you're like, oh no, I'm getting Heather's story now. like you really do. Each book is its own
standalone
world.
And that makes some readers mad. And especially with this book, I got a lot of readers saying, well, where's Kat's story? And I'm like, you got her story. She's done.
Yeah.
But, you
She
know,
dodged a bullet.
it's just a different series. I mean, if you want, I love that you don't have to feel like you have to go back and catch up or buy the next book if you
Right.
don't want to. But, you know, some readers love to see the characters over and over and over again. And that's great because I have those series too. Heartbreaker Bay, Lucky Harbor, Cedar Ridge, Animal Magnetism. I have plenty of series where the characters do stay connected book after book after
Right.
book. But I just wanted to do something new and try it out.
One of the so we mentioned Walker, and he's a delight. He's delicious, and I mean you've got a
favorite
with delicious heroes like you. So one of the things that I was sort of like marveling at was you know, you read, sorry, I bounced my table. You read romance for that like, ooh, that like, woo, you know, that zing, right? That zing feeling. And as a person who's written like serious, hot, on the page sex scenes and not on the page sex scenes or you know, not closed door, but certainly more compact sex scenes, but still somehow managed to continue to provide that, ooh, that like sizzle between the characters. Is it a relief not to have to write those sex scenes anymore? Because we all know if you're a romance writer, there are times that you're just like, oh my God, another sex scene. You know, like is it some of it you're like, oh, I get to move on from this? And how do you think about and kind of craft the attraction and tension between your characters?
Well, I think it's all about word choices. I don't I'm not writing clean, certainly, but I'm not writing erotica. And so it was a challenge to make these feel just as sexy as my sexy books because I don't want to lose any readers. I want people to get what they need out of every book. So I didn't see Walker coming. And so he probably got more lucky than I intended him to. But, you know, like you said, he is very delicious. And I just think it's word choices. So I made sure that the tension stayed high with just words. Because if you can build the tension in scene after scene after scene, you don't need certain words in the love scene
you don't
to make it hot as hell.
Yeah,
right?
you don't. Yeah, completely.
So that's what I did, and that was hard. That took a lot of work. So hopefully it works.
Take a little note there to myself. You don't need. So are you like when you write a draft? I'm sorry. Back to writer questions. Readers.
Right.
I'm sorry. There is a question here, Charlotte. Will there be a sequel? They want more. More.
Would you love to read about Maze and well, if you read this book, you get Maze and Walker's story, their whole story complete in 100,000 words. There's a lot of words about them, so you're not gonna feel like you got ripped off with Maze and Walker at all.
You might want more, but that's just
you might want more, but yeah, but
Jill Shalvis being.
I can promise you, they're still good. they're still good.
They're living on in your head. So, like. Again, sorry, writer question. I hope everyone watching is into these writer questions. How much, like, what does a draft look like for you? Versus, like, do you write a clean draft? That's no.
Writing
heavy sauce.
Writing is hard for me. It takes a lot of concentration that I don't always have, and so the first draft is really ugly. Really, like I have told my husband, if I drop dead after the first draft, which is likely, nobody may see it. Like you cannot give it to my editor. You cannot you burn it because it takes me like 4 or 5 drafts to get it. Because I think of it like a painting. You start with a stick figure, right? That's my first draft. And then maybe you draw in some hair and some features on the face and give it feet and hands. That's the second draft. And then you make it whole. Like, you make it not a stick, right? You give it a body and maybe you give it some background and it's still pencil. So that's the third draft. And then the fourth draft, maybe you start to add some color. And by the fifth draft, that person should be able to walk off that piece of paper and be their own person, answer questions, the same question that would be asked to 5 people and answer it differently. So that's how long it takes me to get the characters right.
So how long does it take you? Someone was asking, Jen Cooper. How long does it take to write a book from start to publish?
A book like the Forever Girl, the Wildstone series, takes me 4 to 5 months. And that's a lot of crying and tears and rewriting. And yeah,
do you take breaks? Like, do you have breaks kind of
Yeah,
scheduled?
so right now I'm writing 2 of these books, these big books a year, and I try to take a couple weeks off between each one, and that's really all I get.
And what do you do
It,
during your breaks besides
I,
cry and
you
eat?
know, I sleep, and I inhale TV and movies, and I fill the well because by the time I'm done, my well is empty, my tank is empty, and I need some gas. And TV and streaming does that. Netflix, Hulu. I literally become a sloth on the couch for a good week, and then yeah,
What give
I
you
just right now I'm inhaling. Let's see, The Expanse, which is on Amazon Prime.
Mhm.
Um, gosh, I'm watching so much. What else? I just finished The Umbrella Academy on the Netflix. That was 2 seasons. I mean, I watch it. I'll read the back. I read too. I'll read the back of the cereal box or the TV guide. Every week I get the TV guide, Entertainment Weekly, S Magazine, People Magazine, Time Magazine, and I read them all.
you get
And my
TV Guide? TV Guide still comes
yes, because yes, I know I'm old, okay, but I read all of this, and my people hate this because they're all neat and I'm the slob. I have a spot down at the island down there in the kitchen, and I pull out pages of these magazines and keep a stack of them because there's a character name or there's a description of a character or there's a plot idea, and it just stacks up, and my people keep putting them into an envelope for me, and I'm like, don't touch the stack. I
There
swear I have
is
like a foot tall stack of that, of story ideas and people ideas, and that's what I do. That those 2 weeks, I flip through all those ideas and try to make a story for the next one.
there is something about, the hard copy, right? Like, I
Yes,
mean, we
yes.
can go on Pinterest and make pin boards and that's all, but there is something about that. Maybe it is because 'cause we're old. I don't
No,
know.
for me, it's because I'm on the screen 24/7 for
Mhm.
4.5 months. So then I go away, and I don't want to be. I want to read a real book, book that I hold. I want to read a magazine. I want to watch TV because I haven't been able to have time for any of that for these 4 months. So
Yeah.
I really stuff as much life into those 2 weeks as I can, or 3, whatever I get. It used to be pre-COVID. We'd drive to the beach, off the mountains to the beach, and stay there for a week. And I would just literally, like, just rejuvenate because
Yeah.
I feel like you have to live your life to be able to tell stories. And this last year, that's been hard for all of us storytellers.
Yeah, this is the first you wrote this book start to finish in quarantine. Has it
Yes.
was that more challenging, less I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people in quarantine and it's pretty like half the writers are like, I have never written more. Like this has been a gift for me and
I
my
wish
book.
that I could say, well, for me, I mean, my life, my personal life didn't change much because I hole up for months at a time anyway. I mean, my
Yeah.
husband, we live in a small town. My husband will finally get me out to an event or whatever that he's got because he's a coach. There's a lot of things, and he'll go, see, she is real, and because they don't see me, no one knows me. She
She
does
too, I didn't
exist.
make her up. I didn't make her up. I'm not that guy. We got another question from Jim Cooper, she's our MVP question asker. Do you ever create music playlists for inspiration or for the story?
I do get a lot of inspiration from songs, and I will go Google the lyrics and print them out and put them in my file. But I cannot listen to anything with lyrics while I'm actually in writing, or I stop to sing. It's not pretty. So I listen to like movie scores, like or just boring music. But my favorite thing to listen to when I'm writing is I have a sound app, so I listen to the waves or the jungle sounds or the forest sounds, because I can't be trusted. If there's music on, I'm going to stop and listen and absorb myself in that. So I can't be trusted.
I wrote for years to music, and then lyrics kept showing up in the book. I had
Mhm.
an editor who was a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, and I am a big Bruce Springsteen fan. And she was like, "Molly, this is a line from The Rising. You can't do."
Damn it.
But it just kind of gets incorporated.
It does. There's some beautiful storytellers, that write songs.
Yeah, it's a real gift. I think about it a lot with like obviously word choice and like
Hmm.
impact with as few words as possible.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a real gift. So you have also said over and over again for many of your books that this is your favorite. Now
I
you
always say
know,
that, and it's like when my kids ask who's my favorite, it's always the one who's asking me. My favorite book is always the one I just finished because it's done and I don't have to look at it again. But sometimes you just have favorites. And Walker, because he was a favorite, I would say The Forever Girl is it was a story that was in my head for a very long time. And I was finally grateful to be able to write it. And so it is truly a favorite. The one before that, a couple books before that, the second book in the Wildstone series called Rainy Day Friends was probably my previous favorite. And I can't even say why, really. Just that story takes place on a small family-run winery. And when we go to the beach, we go down to we go down to San Luis Obispo area in mid-state California. And it's got like ranches and wineries and surfing. And it's just a really cool, small, very unknown little area. And we were driving along the hills one day and there was a sign for Kelsey Winery. And Kelsey is the name of my oldest child. So of course we pulled in and it was the cutest little family-owned little tiny little winery. And the guy, gave us this huge tour. So I wrote Rainy Day Friends set in that winery, and my characters were a small, a large family who ran this winery. So that's a favorite of mine because it just gives me fond memories of family being together.
Do you ever worry that you won't have another idea? Are you like,
ideas don't seem to be my problem. It's having the discipline to sit down and write them is my problem.
Another question here from Lori. Curious, which was your favorite from Lucky Harbor?
Oh, that's a hard one. Lucky Harbor is a book series where if you love connected characters, you should read this one. There's 12 books, and I wrote them in series of trilogies. So 1, 2, and 3 are the same characters. 4, 5, and 6 are the same characters. 7, 8, and 9, and so on. And so the first trilogy, I was at a writer conference still writing the category romances, and I passed an old editor of mine in the hallway, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm writing categories, but I really want to be writing a single title." And she said, "Well, what have you got for me?" And I said, "I've got these 3 sisters. Their dead mother, they're estranged. Their dead mother left them a rundown B&B. She goes, "I want it. I'll take it. Write me the book." And so I sold it in the hallway outside of a bathroom in some hotel in New York City. I'm not kidding. So that's how I got from. So my instinct was I need to write all 3. I was going to write a big girl book. So I was going to do all sisters in one book. And I wrote the outline. I sent her to her. She was like, no. Each sister gets a book.
Milk this. You got to milk.
Yes, we're going to milk this. So Lucky Harbor was born. So the first 3, long story short, the first 3, Simply Irresistible. Oh my God, I don't know if I can remember the name of the time. The third one is Head Over Heels, and that's my favorite. And I think the reason it's my favorite is because I wrote 1 with all 3 sisters, and then I wrote 2 with all 3 sisters. So by the time I got to the 3rd sister, I felt like I was home. I knew these characters so well. So I really feel like Head Over Heels is probably my favorite of the Lucky Harbor series.
And it's funny because a lot of authors would feel like, man, I've scooped everything I can out of this story, like a 3rd book with the same, but.
Well, each sister got the love story. And so the love story was their book. And they're very, very different. And there was an ongoing mystery, and they're all so I didn't feel that way then. But by the time I wrote book 12 of Lucky Harbor, I was like, okay, I'm ready to move on. And I did. And I never closed it up. Someday I'll go back. I still get a lot of letters requesting me to go back, and I will someday.
We were talking about how authors sort of create fandoms. And I feel like you are an author who has a real fandom, whose characters and books live on in people's heads. And I feel like part of that is actually, and I say this as a person who, like, the author that I am the biggest fan, out of control fan of is Elizabeth Lowell.
Oh yeah, I do. Oh my gosh, she writes great historicals.
I just can't. And I think that part of it is you've got to leave a little bit hanging. You've got to leave a little bit. So the readers, myself included, are always like, man, what about the other brother?
I know. It's a quality problem to have, that people want more books. Yeah. I mean, I love that. And sometimes I get letters for a character that I never meant to ever have their own story. And they'll say, when can we have this story? I'm thinking, he's a bad guy. I don't really want to write a story. But you just never know what readers are going to want.
Yeah. So now you have to be honest, Jill. You have to be honest. Don't dodge this question.
I will not. Unless you're going to ask me who I'm reading.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not. So you told us some of your favorites. Can you tell us which book of yours was the biggest problem child, like just like start to finish, nothing but trouble, or a complete rewrite, or the cover came back and you were like, what is this? And like,
that happens all the time.
I know. But which book is like, if you can't even look at it.
The funny thing is, from experience, I have, every 3 or 4 books is a total bitch to write, and I hate it. And I send it off to my editor and like cringing as I send it off. But I have learned that the ones I have the hardest time with seem to somehow be reader favorites. And I don't know why that is. I have no idea why that is. So one of the hardest ones for me to write in Wildstone series is the Lemon Sisters. And I must have rewritten that book 4 or 5 times before I finally got it to where, okay, maybe my editor won't kill me when she gets this. And it was her favorite book. And then it came out and it was readers' favorite book. And I don't want to ever look at it again, but if people like it, great.
I feel like sometimes those books that are real problems, they really taught you, like you leveled up in terms of like you were trying something tricky and you went for it and it happened.
Or out of my comfort zone somehow.
Yeah.
Like with the Lemon Sisters, I was a little bit out of my comfort zone with the bigger story element.
Yeah.
And it's just, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Some parts.
Regina has a question for you. Hey, Regina. How did you have the idea to continue Lucky Harbor's sets of trilogies? Because I think that was brilliant.
Well, thank you, but it was all my editor's idea. So I turned in the first trilogy. I wrote the first trilogy, and I thought that would be it, and we'd move on. And then my editor called me, and she goes, "So, what's the next trilogy going to be about?" And we need it set in Lucky Harbor. So I did another trilogy, and the second set was 3 strangers get stuck in a diner in a big storm, an electrical storm. And so those three people become friends, and then they each got their own story, but their stories were intertwined and so on. That was,
oh man, that is such a good idea. Jen Cooper, again, MVP, question asking MVP. Jen Cooper was that kid at school. Jen, were you that kid at school? What was your favorite book event that you've ever attended? Mine had a Shalvis sandwich pick and book cookies.
I've attended, any event that I've attended where readers have been a favorite, and I miss that so much. I miss going to signings because I miss connecting with the readers and seeing, people who, because we live in a vacuum for the whole year. We're by ourselves writing, and then it would be fun to a couple times a year go somewhere and meet up with readers. So I have to say, anytime that there was readers at any event, I had a great time. I mean, there was one time I was stuck in Houston with a terrible hurricane, so that was probably my least favorite. But other than that, getting to travel and meet readers, I've loved every single one.
Yeah, it's one of the it's a lonely, solitary gig.
Yeah.
And it's a real perk to be able to get out and meet readers,
and to even have readers that want to come see you.
Are you?
I'm always surprised.
You're here for me? Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
And Jill, this has been a real perk too. I'm so glad that you took the time to come and say hi and to chat. I really do appreciate it. Jen, is there any previous series of yours that you'd love to revisit?
All of them. I closed none of them. I would love to go back to Lucky Harbor. I'd love to go back to Heartbreaker Bay and the Animal series, Cedar Ridge, someday when I have enough time.
I'm sorry, I was going to close down because I said it wouldn't take longer than 40 minutes, but we're going to chat a little bit longer. What animals play a big part in a lot of your books? Like somebody's always got dogs. Someone's always got a pet of some kind. What does that happen organically, or are you now like, oh, I got to put in the pet now?
No, it happens organically. It's a cheat for me because I love animals, and so it's an easy way to add a character that I just love animals. So it's, there's always going to be a dog or a cat or a swearing parrot or something. There's always going to be something.
It's a good way. I love how you use it to reveal things about characters too, right? Mm-hmm. Like how people are with animals tells you a lot of.
Absolutely.
This is a total side note story. We have a dog, and a walker comes and gets her a few times a week because the walker has a giant bunch of dogs, and my dog loves these dogs, and I can't provide my dog all those dogs. But anyway, she takes the dog to this dog walk place, and there's another walker there that my dog loves, and my Kiwi, my dog, will jump into the walker's arms. Will jump into this guy's arms. And Kiwi's not little; she's a medium-sized mutt. And so I told my husband this. I was like, Kiwi just jumps into this guy's arms. I leave, and I can hear him in the room. He's like, "Come on, Kiwi, come on."
You know, he should be a hero in one of your books.
It was very, I thought that it was the sweetest thing, his jealousy over. And Kiwi was like, no, man, won't do it.
Can't do it.
Won't do it.
Well, that guy, the Walker guy, needs to be in one of your books.
Yeah. Newbie here. The pandemic has introduced me to a few new authors to read. I'm looking forward to reading some of your books. Oh, Lori,
Well,
that's awesome.
I hope you enjoy.
You will, Lori. There's just no way you won't. Well, Jill, thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure to see you. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Pick up The Forever Girl or any of Jill's books. You won't regret it. Stay home if you can. Wear a mask.
Yeah. Be safe.
Be safe. Thanks, guys.
Be safe.
Read a
Talk
book.
to you soon.